In Port Lincoln this week, a group has been gathering, talking about some of these successful programs they've been running out on country, out in some of the most remote parts of the state. They are the Alanjara Wiliara Landscape Board, and joining us in the studio this morning is General Manager Kim Krebs. Good morning.
Good morning, Emma.
We have got Mick Haynes, a board member and an original Mallee Park kid, or a kid from the block, now based in Ceduna.
Good morning, Emma.
How are you? You're board member these days?
Yes.
Yeah. And also joining us and not keen to talk on the radio today, Peter Burgoyne Senior, who's representing on the board, but also as a community leader who works with the board. Good morning to you.
Morning, Emma.
Yay.
Thanks for that intro.
It's good to have you all in the studio here today. What the Landscape Board does out there on country is quite phenomenal in weaving together community and ecology experts from trained sources, which we should say are not always the local experts on the ground. Kim, how important is it getting together as the board and talking about everything that's been going on?
Emma, if you like, it's the highlight of every couple of months of regrouping. Like you say, we are covering an enormous area, 25 million hectares, and our board members are coming from those communities. So we've got a couple of board members from up in the APY lands. Within the Maralinga-Jarracha country, we've got members that are within Oak Valley, but also across into WA at Junjunjara. And we've got members from the far west coast. So it is such a large area. It takes a lot of planning to bring everyone together so that we can actually make the strategic decisions that we need to about where we're going to put our effort, our money, our resources, and our collaboration with the community. So these comings together, which we're doing today in Port Lincoln, are really fundamental conversations. And I'm very grateful that we can also, this time round, we're meeting with the Eyre Peninsula Landscape Board, so we can actually talk with our neighbours, if you like, to learn from them and for them to learn from us.
Mick, for you as a board member, we've got Mick Haynes, one of the original Mallee Park block kids, both him and Peter, the kids from the block back in the day before it became Mallee Park, to wear this, I guess, this jacket of a board member. What is it that you do as a board member?
Yeah, Emma, back in March, I was appointed presiding chair of AW. Extremely proud moment for me, considering my journey throughout life. But having said that I'm happy to be the spokesperson, if you like, for and on behalf of the board. We have community leaders from various parts like Armata, Scadesco, Yallata, Adelaide, Oak Valley, Maralinga. So we've got a wide range of experienced people sitting on our board, and I'm happy to be working alongside of those representatives. And we work very closely with communities about collaboration, how we can build capacity. And our vision for the future this year is to give our board a stronger voice across the region.
When you look at that stronger voice, I mean, I went to say good day into the room yesterday. You do so many different people from all over the place, as you mentioned, coming together to talk about what's important to them. How different are all the different needs of the different communities when it comes to landscape and looking after country?
Yeah, well, the region is quite extremely diverse, as Kim has mentioned, and I can draw comparisons to our visit where we took our board. We joined other landscapes boards in Murray Bridge, and we actually took a tour around the Murraylands region, and their focus is around agriculture, fruit and veg and that type of thing. Our region is completely the opposite. We've got undulating country, no bitumen roads. We've got feral animals there like camels and donkeys, and our biggest threat is buffalo grass across the region. And so we've got key target areas that we want to tackle. So this year we're hoping that we will receive additional funding from the federal government, so we can have an all-out attack on this grass, which is the scourge, not only on our land, but encroaching on agricultural land.
Coming down, isn't it, from up the top? With all these focuses, I mean, to try and get that funding, how important is it, do you think, that these programs go ahead?
Emma, it's critical that they go ahead. One of the challenges that we have, our board, along with the other landscape boards in South Australia, our job is to work with the community to look after the environment, and often our funding comes in short bursts. It might only last for a year, or if we're lucky, up to 5 years. But looking after the environment, that's a lifelong commitment. And if I was to use the words that my board members use, it's about you looking after country, you look after yourself, and healing country and healthy country. So it's a lifelong pursuit. It's not a short-term burst of pursuits. So we need consistent funding so that we can set up long-term programs that do eradicate those feral cats, the feral foxes, the donkeys, the bufflegrass, because a short attack on them will not actually get rid of them. It has to be a long campaign. So we need that commitment, and there's always opportunities for our community to be involved, and so we want to give the young generation as well as the current working generation opportunities to be involved.
This whole looking after country, I mean, this is no big new thing to First Nations communities. This is something that's been handed down generation to generation. How proud are you to be able to be working in this space officially? I'm sure you were already doing it unofficially in community, but what's it like for you to be able to kind of take on that role?
Yeah, just as a board member, I mean, it's very fulfilling, because I am from Coonibba in the Nullarbor area in the Western Desert, through my father, my grandfather, my grandmother. So being on this board also, to get a good feeling about, developing a healthier country, working in with all the experts, to develop the country. We're up against feral animals, which is devastating when you look at small species that we got throughout the lands. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying my time there on this board here. It broadens your scope about how big the area that we manage, but
we'll do some talking
also
now,
about
I think,
the problems
after
and issues
breaking.
that we got to face. And that's why we need the full support of the government, to be in support of us with, further funding to continue to develop our program bigger and better, to be more effective.
Must be hard as well, because that's so important. We've heard so many First Nations communities talk about that importance of handing on knowledge, but knowledge can be lost when native animals are lost from a landscape. So those really important things, and it only takes, as we've learnt, it can only take one animal to disappear from a landscape to have such a roll-on effect. So like the brown-nosed bettong from down in Coffin Bay, they realised was doing an important job of furrowing the soil, which let the water sit in the ground to make the seeds grow. So all these things that one animal had such a role in a landscape. So, for the future generations, it's so important.
That's why it's good to work in and get the advice of traditional people. They'll tell you what works, what has worked, and what doesn't work. Then you combine that with the professionals that we got on our staff that's working, and you combine that, and you develop a pretty effective approach and team towards managing our region.
I think this is a good little showcase of evidence of how communities can work together so well as well. So many people from a diverse group of community sitting together in one room making plans for such a massive area of the state.
253,000 square kilometres. It's huge.
It's massive.
And, it's a real challenge for our staff as well, that have to go out on country, particularly around summer. Extremely hot, but they're dedicated and committed to working with local communities, right up in the APY lands, working with rangers, and it's the same around Oak Valley. But yeah, we're extremely proud of the work they do, but if we could get more funding for rangers, that's going to allow us to have a bigger impact on country.
And so important as well to have those job opportunities out on community where there aren't a lot of options. Health sector, maybe government, at the school, working in the school, and beyond that, maybe doing the water run or something. But there's not a lot of job opportunities out there for the community, is there?
Yeah, just as a traditional owner and all that, I'm from two groups, from Guguja and Mooning. But to be out in country and that you don't realise the feeling until you go out in country, and that you're part of that country and where your ancestors come from, the feeling is overwhelming and beautiful to be out on that land.
And I've seen it firsthand, Peter, when we work with the ranger teams and the elders come out with the younger rangers and they're able to show where there should be a pygmy possum, for example, and they find it. And some, we just found out just in our board meeting the other day that there was a discovery of pygmy possums that we hadn't expected, and everybody's energy and excitement of being there and finding those possums and being part of that contribution of helping that landscape be a great habitat for pygmy possums, that's very satisfying.
But also too is the attachment, is the respect for land, for flora and fauna too. Whatever you do, if you break anything or whatever you do on the land, it's got to be for a purpose. And as a kid growing up, we broke those rules. We got a few clips under the ears from the old people. It was very strict back in the day.
Looking after country was number one.
Yeah, that's right. When I go back through the country now, it's beautiful to be there.
And to know that things still remain thanks to the forebears of your family.
Yeah, but then knowing that we got a team now working towards, developing better ways to manage the country, you know what I mean?
Makes your heart feel a bit full.
Yeah, it feels good. You can see things are happening.
Yeah.
And as you know, we've got a lot of issues and problems, like Michael said, with, camels, wild dogs, cats and, So we've got to look at eradicating those things. They're continuous pests on the country.
Yeah, they're hungry critters, aren't they?
Yeah. The only one we like seeing running around is our native dingo. He's got all the rights like us.
Emma, can I just boast on behalf of these two good men that they are community leaders, and you introduced them as being, some of the originals. I'm very inspired by all the leaders that I work with on country, looking after country with our board and our board's connections, and I hope that the work that they do is inspirational for other people.
Yeah, good on them. Congratulations for all you're doing. Thank you so much for coming in today to share. I know it takes a bit of courage sometimes to get on the radio, so I really do appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming in. Peter Burgoyne Senior, Mick Haynes, a board member, one of the bosses on the board, and two of the OGs, the original Mallee Park kids before it was Mallee Park, when it was known as The Block. Yeah. So awesome to hear about that. If you want to see some photos of them running around, go check them out at Plaque, apparently. And Kim Krebs in with us, the General Manager, all together, Alan Jajara Williara Landscape Board, coming together in Port Lincoln this week for their board meeting. They're calling out that desperate plea for ongoing funding. You are listening to ABC Radio across the Eyre Peninsula, north and west.